Now our next subject is one that's near and dear to my heart. Sales, and it should be near and dear to your heart too, because this is kind of the heartbeat of the business. If you're not winning jobs, whether you're doing it through sales or bidding or whatever, you're not making any money. So without making any money, the rest of the stuff of your job is kind of useless. But at the same time, obviously, you need to learn how to do the back end side of the fulfillment. But sales, sales, sales. Now, if you come from a strong roofing background, like maybe you were a subcontractor before, and now you're starting your own business, this section is probably going to be the most important of all of them to you, outside of the, I know you're tired of me saying this already, but low overhead, high profit stuff. And a lot of this section, we're going to be talking about those kind of things on how to be able to keep your overhead low when you're marketing, advertising your business, when you're training your sales staff. Everything we do that we're teaching here, again, is low overhead. In other words, way to maximize the amount of money that you're spending compared to how much money you're actually making. Okay, so sales is vitally, vitally important to your business. And my background is, well, prior to starting this company, was in sales. I was military, then I got out of the military, worked for oil and gas for a few years, and then I had a strong sales background. And like I told you guys before, I worked for the largest digital marketing company in the United States, and I was a sales rep there. So I got some really great corporate training. And when I left, I was the #1 sales rep in America when I left my job to actually start this business. Okay, now let's segue into this next subject, which is, what are you going to go after with your company? And this is the reason I'm talking about this first, is you guys really need to think really hard before you start your business on what your perfect client is. And I'm going to talk about that a few times as we go through the sales processes. Your perfect client, you need to figure out, is that going to be in residential? Is it going to be in commercial? Is it going to be government? What kind of work do you want to do? Now, most of us that get into this business, we all start off doing storm work and residential. Typically, you're doing storm work and residential, and a lot of times you may try to get some storm leads for commercials if you have a commercial background, or if you can get the licenses for it. But you need to kind of figure out which one you want to go after, because even if you do government work or industrial roofing, a lot of those government jobs are similar to, they're sloped, or we'll just call them sloped and flat roofing. We'll just call it that. For government work, because you're going to be kind of doing a combination of both if you decide to do some government work. Now, at my company, we've done all three. We've done residential, we've done commercial, and we've done government. Now, fast forwarding five years, we don't do any residential anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that you guys can't do any residential. It just means that we don't anymore. And I'm going to kind of talk about some of the reasons why as we go through this. Now, this first video is going to be very important. And I don't want you to sit there and think that I am like one of these contractors who thinks I'm better than residential. It's just, it doesn't fit our business model, what we're trying to do. Okay. My personal opinion with residential is that you're going to have to work way, way too hard for the amount of money that you can actually make. But that's just my thought. And secondly, my life is traveling. I want to travel all the time. I want to go see the world. I want to go to different places. I can't really manage a sales team over a computer. Now you can try, and we did that. We tried, and I'll talk a little bit towards the end of this video about how we failed doing that. But in my experience, doing residential is just really hard, and it, again, doesn't fit with our business model, but it may for you. Now, commercial work, that might fit your business model, but you may not be ready for that, in the same way with government work. So let's just start off and talk about residential roofing first. Now, most of you, and later on in the video series, we're also going to talk about getting your first customer. So just know that this is not an all-encompassing video on whether you leave this video and you go, oh my God, I'm going to do residential or commercial or government or whatever. We're going to talk about kind of the pros and cons of each one, and then I'm going to talk about our story of our business and how we got to what we're doing now. Okay, so residential. So the pros are with residential that you're going to be able to sign contracts fast. You're going to get paid relatively quickly. It's easy. You can find a lot of subcontracting crews to do it, and you can be local and do it. Literally, in a lot of states that don't require licensing, you can go, you don't even have to buy a truck. You can drive a Corolla, sign some roofs up, and start getting people to do the work. I mean, it's sometimes that easy. You guys have heard the term chuck in a truck. Well, a lot of times that's the real deal in roofing. So that's some of the pros in residential. Now, some of the cons are the profit margins. They can be good, but you're not making a big chunk of money. I mean, you may make, I think the biggest just pure residential job that we did that was a single family home. North Alabama, keep in mind, does not make as much as if you were in New England or in Minnesota or just in a larger metro. But I think the most we ever made in profit on a residential was maybe $10,000, maybe 12, probably 12. We maybe did an insurance claim, but that was just more than roofing. We did roof, windows, gutters, like the whole thing. But so you don't make as much profit overall. It's a lot of work, especially if you're doing storm work, and we're going to get into storm work kind of later on. It's just some of the cons with it too are, I mean, you're going to do a lot of work. You're going to meet a lot of people. You have to deal with homeowners. I remember when it was like my final straw. I remember it had come a really, really big snow and ice storm. I went out to a customer's house. The salesman couldn't go, so I had to go as the owner. And I got to their house, and it was like already like 7:30 or 8, and it was already iced and snowed over. And I got there, and I sat there for like an hour going over all their paperwork, which I didn't mind doing because I had questions. But the point was, it was, I didn't leave till over 9 o'clock. I had their son like bouncing on my leg, the whole time, and like kids were yelling in the background. And it was just, it was hard to have this meeting, and I didn't leave till past 9. The roads were so slick. I had to drive home at like 10 miles per hour because in North Alabama, obviously, we don't get a lot of, snow and ice storms, so the roads were really, really rough. And it just, I just remember thinking, like, I don't want to be doing this much longer. I don't want to do this my whole life where I'm, out having to meet with homeowners at 8 o'clock at night on their schedule. And, that's just a big con for me. It was, you're going to get phone calls from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. You're going to have people, no matter how much care you have to do a great job, there's going to be people that are disappointed. The list goes on and on. And again, I don't want it to sound like I'm just anti-residential, but you have to really love doing residential roofing. You have to really love talking to people. You have to really love, making a difference in your community. And I'm not saying that those are bad things, but the point is with residential, if you have a passion for it and you want to be someone that you don't want to travel, you don't want to, you definitely want to take a lot of time off. Maybe you can take off the winters or a few months in the winters, and you just want to be a staple in your community, then residential is a great option for you. If you really don't have any like desires to go out to, maybe you're from Texas and you want to do projects in, in Washington or Kansas, or you want to go up to, the Northeast to do any jobs up in New England, then that's totally fine. Like, there's nothing, again, wrong with it. Because if you want to be a staple in your community with your advertising and marketing and kind of being known as the guy locally in the area, whether it's doing residential and commercial or just doing residential, then that's a great position for you. Some people really love being in that role and building out either, a big sales staff or just being, that one guy in town that does all of his own sales, and he's just a really good roofing contractor. But that's the pros and cons to me with residential. Now with commercial work, one of the pros with commercial is you're going to make more money. Obviously, the profits are very similar with residential, but they're a lot bigger profits. So again, with residential, you want to make like 30%. But if you do a 30% profit on a $10,000 house, that's $3,000. You do a $100,000 roof, that you make 30% profit, you're going to make $30,000. You get paid a lot faster doing residential. With commercial, it takes a little bit longer to get paid. But let's focus on the pros. A lot of contractors can't do commercial roofing, so you're going to kind of separate yourself from the pack of people who just do residential. So when you start doing commercial work, there's very few contractors that actually do it. So once you learn commercial roofing, and flat roofing we'll use specifically, there's just not going to be as much competition. Sometimes the profit margins can even be higher. If you start getting into negotiated work and you start doing industrial work, the profits can even be higher than 30%. Your insurance goes down. It's actually, believe it or not, you get less insurance costs from going from residential to commercial, because commercial insurance is less. What's a good way of putting this? you're going to be a little bit more selective in what type of jobs that you get, because with residential, there's a lot of houses. With commercial, there's not many roofs available, so it's going to be a little bit harder getting steady work. So you have to kind of pick and choose what jobs you do. You're going to do a little bit better marketing. So those are the kind of the pros and cons to doing commercial roofing. Plus, you need a longer line of credit when you're doing commercial roofing, and we'll get into the line of credit stuff later. You're going to get paid slower. It's harder to find crews. All those things are a little bit more difficult when you do commercial roofing. But again, like I said, the access that you're going to get is you're just going to have less competition when you move to that. And that's just part of kind of graduating with your company. Now, you guys may be thinking, I want to do residential and commercial. You totally can. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of companies do, but just understand that if you're wanting to make the jump from residential to commercial, getting paid slower sometimes can cause big deals with your cash flow. And I don't want to spend too much time on that right now, because we will talk about that later. But my point is that you need to do your due diligence, talk to some other contractors, get on the Facebook groups and talk to other people. Find out what you want to do. Do you want to do commercial? Do you want to do residential? Do you want to do both? Do you want to do government work? I'm going to touch on government work just a minute. Government work is kind of similar to commercial work. But it's on its own lingo. There's a whole, whether you're doing local or state or federal work, it's got its own lingo. And I would say that you need to probably get some experience doing the first two before you get into federal work, or you do state work or local municipalities, unless you have relationships and stuff that can get you into jobs. It's just another animal in itself. Okay, so I'll tell you the story of what we did. So we started off like most companies. We started doing asphalt shingle roof replacements for storm damage. So I had worked for like 3 months for a roofing company out of Dallas to kind of learn the industry. And I learned how to do the insurance process, and I felt like I was pretty good with it, particularly since I had a sales background, so it was easy for me to start kind of doing that. Well, that's good and great and all, but what we realized as we started doing this is it wasn't really our fit for what we wanted to do. But what we did is we ended up, my business partner and I, we started doing door knocking. We started doing Facebook advertising. We were doing, our Instagram, and then boom, magic happened. I haven't brought this up yet because I kind of wanted to wait until this point in the video, but we started a video called Get a Roof, Get a Gun. And so if you recognize me from that, or if you don't, please just Google Get a Roof, Get a Gun. It was a massive internet sensation. I ended up getting interviewed on Fox News. I was interviewed by Piers Morgan with Good Morning Britain. The video was seen all around the United States. It was an explosion. I went from being a fairly unknown guy to I've got the verification marks on Instagram and Facebook, so now I have a verified account. For some people that's cool, some people it's not. I'm just a normal guy that's just had success in running my business. But the point is that it was just an overnight sensation, and I'll talk a little bit more about this as we walk you through the digital marketing side of starting your business. But we were getting so many leads in, we were getting so many calls, and we were so aggressive with our marketing, we ended up having to hire a full sales staff. And so we started the company in July of 2017, like officially. We'd already kind of started doing the work at the beginning of 2017, and then all of a sudden I remember we took everybody out to Cracker Barrel, and I looked around the table and we had 10 people working for us, and I was like, we had 2 people in the office. We had basically a fulfillment manager, or a production manager. We had a full sales staff, and it was overwhelming because we grew so fast. And our first year in business, I think I told you earlier we did $1 million, but it was $1 million our first year, which was only 6 months technically, and then our second year we did $2 million. It was just such an explosive growth for 2 guys who really didn't know that much about roofing or construction in general. And so that was just a scary time for us. And all of our jobs were residential that we were doing. Now, we were making a lot of money in terms of revenue, but our profits just were not very good. We just didn't do a very good job of hiring. I think we could have done a much better job of hiring. We could have done a much better job of maximizing our profits. I should have been not outselling any jobs. It's just been managing and then allowing my business partner to take care of the production side with our production manager. But those are just, in hindsight, you can see how there's an issue. But of course, we never expected to be some overnight success like we were and have all these leads coming in overnight. It was crazy time. Well, after the dust settled, after about 2.5 years, I had read a book. We'd done some commercial work, and the commercial work was better. When I say commercial, we were doing like multifamily. We were doing these apartment complexes, and I read a book called, it's escaping me right now, Good to Great. And so I read a book called Good to Great, fantastic book. And one of the things in that book that I found just fascinating was the author talked about having your hedgehog concept, or what is something that you can be best in the world at. And I knew in my heart that I never wanted to be a residential roofing contractor. I just did not have it in my heart to, while I loved helping homeowners and we loved going out of our way to take care of people, a lot of times it's a thankless job. And a lot of people you'll get a lot of people to thank you for the work you did. There's just so many times where you bend over backwards for people and they just screw you. And, I didn't feel like my heart was ever going to be in residential roofing. And so we had already started having success doing multifamily, these large affordable housing, multifamily roofing projects. And granted, a lot of the time it was like 3-tab shingles and maybe architectural shingles, but it was big roofs, so there's a lot of profits in those. So we decided that we were going to completely quit doing residential and go all commercial and just start doing all roofs on affordable housing. So that's what we did. And we just moved completely. We shut down our residential altogether and went all to commercial. Now fast forward to where we're at now. Our company mainly just does commercial, and we do government work. And I'm not going to get too much into government work just because in this video series, it's really about starting your company and getting comfortable with, just getting everything started. But you guys got to figure out on your own what kind of life you want to live. Now, the bonuses to work doing the commercial work is we can start traveling again. Once the staff some of the people, went with us over to the commercial side. Some people didn't. They didn't want to work with us, so they started their own business with the things that we taught them, which was fine. We were happy for them. But as we started doing commercial work, now my business partner and I could start traveling. That's when we started living in Mexico and Colombia, and we started traveling to Europe and all these other places where we could start going to all these exotic destinations and still running our company. So our move to commercial and government work was just much better for us.